As we get closer to the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, the excitement and anticipation just keeps building. Now, recently, I've been watching a lot of Zeltic, another content creator here on YouTube, specifically dealing with Zelda content. His analysis of the trailers for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Now, I did already watch them as they came out, but I went back and took another look based off his most recent trailer that he had for the official trailer number 3. And he is a phenomenal content creator. Make sure you guys go check him out. But after looking at a number of different things in those analysis and going back and checking out the trailers again myself, going through my footage and some of the stuff that I've even done on my own channel, I think it brings about the good question. Does Tears of the Kingdom make the Breath of the Wild look like a tech demo? And I'm going to say, yeah, kinda. This thought process has been brought up quite a bit. I saw somebody on Twitter also put it out there as well, that you know what, it's kind of looking, when you start looking at all the different things here, what The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom does, it looks like it blows Breath of the Wild out of the water. Now, this is something that I talked about beforehand, even claiming the ridiculous claim, it seems, right, at the time, that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom would be the best open world game. And now, after looking at all these different analysis from people and watching a lot of great content creators, not just Zeltic, but other content creators on Just Restart and more, go over analysis when it comes to graphics and when it comes to the gameplay, when it comes to some of the secrets, the story, also HMK as well talking about it. There is a lot of stuff here that I think a lot of the people who don't really look at things when it comes to Zelda that deep missed, which did lead to a lot of the confusion beforehand when it comes to, is this just $70 DLC or not? Because if you go back and look at it from the lens of a core content creator that really makes Zelda content and you see what they analyze, this was something that was apparent from the very early start, and Nintendo wanted to wait to drive that hype, like I talked about in my most recent video where I discussed the smart marketing tactic, which make sure you check out that video if you haven't already seen it. But when it comes down to the analysis and what is going on with this game, why does it make The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild look like a tech demo? Well, there's the first thing that we're going to start off here, and that's probably one of the, I would say, low points of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for some people, and that's the story, impact, and intrigue. Breath of the Wild is very intriguing and very cool because it has a story that's very, very mysterious. You're not sure what's going on. It's been 100 years, this calamity went down, and you're looking to kind of reclaim and find what happened, but it's told in a very haphazard way with memories that you can find or not find, different divine beasts that you can do or not do. So it becomes a little bit hectic when it comes to putting together the story and having it be cohesive, but that's not the case when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. It looks like it has that same mysterious impact and intrigue, but it's taken up to the next level, like we would see in a game like The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, or like Twilight Princess, or like some of these other Zelda games that are known for their lore and for their history and for their storytelling in the game. And I think that Skyward Sword is probably a good example here, considering some of the themes in this game with the Sky Islands and also more with the malice and potentially there being links to demise. So I feel that this game really takes that formula and really just rips it up and says, okay, we've been there, done that, but let's take what we have done and take that up like 10 million times at this point because the impact of the story. And to me, what they're doing with Princess Zelda does kind of mirror sometimes what they did with The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword and how Zelda was on her own quest to make sure that she had to do what she needed to do. But I think that this time with the story and with the Zonai and with people talking to Princess Zelda and with her saying, Link, you need to do this, and then potentially even communicating with each other through certain ways, I think that it's going to create a story, impact, intrigue, and a resolution to this whole thing that's going to be incredibly satisfying and far more satisfying and better than what The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild has, because we have so many aspects with Ganon being rehydrated, with the Zonai and deep lore, with Princess Zelda and her maturation and changing. There is a lot to really go through, and I highly recommend looking at some of these content creators who have analyzed things a bit more so you can kind of be on the same page when the game does launch. Now let's talk about another thing here that is a huge improvement, which almost looks tech demo-ish, and that is enemy variety. Now don't get me wrong, Breath of the Wild has some fantastic enemies. It's got some fantastic setups. There's really cool things that when you first play it for your first time, you're going to be like, wow, that was really cool, and you're going to play through and have a lot of fun. But I think that with Tears of the Kingdom. The enemy variety here is absolutely exciting. We have the bokoblins, we have moblins, we have all the stuff, the Lionels, we have all the stuff that we would expect that we saw from the first game, but then we have variations of those. So we have these winged creatures that are picking up enemies. We have the stone golems that also have enemies on their body, and you can fight them with your own creations. So you have fusions of enemies that are using different elements from the first game and attacking you in that type of way. Plus we have these new construct enemies as well that are up in the sky, and we're probably going to have a lot more other creations as well. We have these huge constructs that are also fighting Link. We have a Hydra that's in there as well. There are so many dynamic things that they put into this game that really show that enemy variety was something that they needed to improve. Enemy variety and enemy AI were two things that the Zelda team absolutely needed to improve and make better, and makes probably the total count of enemies and what they do, the differences, it's probably going to be in the hundreds, if not more, when it comes to various different changes and additions that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has over The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which once again, if you look at a tech demo and you say, hey, there's this many enemies and they can do this in this game, because there's a lot of repeat stuff in Breath of the Wild, and then you compare that to the final build where you added in maybe 10, 15, 20, 30 more of this or that, I think that Tears of the Kingdom takes that and says, we're going to make this a game and a half, and maybe even then some, even based off of the small variety of enemies that we've seen here, even enemies that can have fused weapons of their own that have different attributes that you wouldn't expect from, let's say, a different enemy that's the same thing, but they might be carrying something different. That creates more variety, and that creates different styles of combat and what you need to do for strategy right there. So that is a huge aspect in The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, really making Breath of the Wild look like that tech demo. And I say it with all due respect to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, because that game was absolutely incredible. But what do you do when you have a game that's already incredible? Well, you take that incredible slice and you make it even way better than you can. This is giving me almost a Mass Effect 2 to Mass Effect 1 vibe, where they take the game and say, all right, we're really going to improve on every single aspect here, from enemies to the story and even more. Now, next up here, we have a couple different things that's huge when it comes to what the fans or even what the casual gamer is going to see, and that is the environmental / puzzle dynamics and the drastic sense of vertical scale. These are two things to me that really can make or break this type of open world adventure game so people don't get bored. This is the biggest thing that you need to make sure that you do, so your environments and so that your game is really interesting to play through. Environmental puzzle dynamics, that's one thing that Breath of the Wild was a little bit low on. It was a little bit weak on that. Now, yeah, you had your shrines, which were fun. Some were good, some were not. Yeah, you had some stuff that you did out in the open world, and it was still very solid. It wasn't bad. Just really exploring and finding different things and finding different ways to get to places was very fun in Breath of the Wild. But with Tears of the Kingdom, they're really taking it to the next level. The sky areas are going to give you far more different ways to go about, and also give you different ways to explore with the ascend ability, for example. So if there are certain puzzles, or if you are in certain areas where you need to go through ceilings, you could add that in, which I'm pretty sure they're going to have that. We even saw a little bit of that in the Mr. Alnuma gameplay presentation, where he showed him actually going through a cave to the top, but at the top of that cave, it was cold there. So then he ended up leaving. So those are things that are really going to play a part into the exploration and into the diversity of these environments to make it fun to go through. Now, the drastic sense of vertical scale, once again, just adds a whole new layer. We thought The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a massive game, and it really is. When it comes to the land size, there is a lot of variety, and there's a lot of different places to go, and it's fun to go through. It keeps you interested, but we've already went through that. It's already been 6+ years. People have already played it multiple times. People have sped around it. People have looked at every single inch of this game through clips and different parts. We need something that actually beats it out by a large margin here. And I think that sense of verticality gives you that deep breath feeling of seeing Link flying through the sky in different types of ways. It's liberating, it's exciting, and it adds new dynamics to the gameplay that really, if they didn't do that and it was just on the ground again, it might fall into the same trap that we see with a lot of open world games. We get that open world fatigue. We see it with games like Assassin's Creed. We've seen it before with other open world games. You're just on the ground, you're just going through, and it's almost the same thing. this environmental puzzle dynamics where you're up in the air, doing different things, solving puzzles, having companions with you, and also that sense of scale of verticality to where it's not just the ground that you've been on before, but also up in the sky that has different scenery and different things to do. That was just the tech demo that we're playing. Now we're playing the actual game here. So I really love that, and I think that that is going to be one of the biggest key things with this game, and why it's really going to crush Breath of the Wild, in my opinion, in many different types of ways. Now, we know about the creation tools. These are things that made Breath of the Wild a household name. These are things that really gave Breath of the Wild that creativity spark, that fun, that, oh my gosh, did that person just do that? Did they just pull that off when it comes to combat and all of that? But Tears of the Kingdom takes that and says, okay, it's not going to be any more of this little stuff where people are really skilled that are putting together these different type of things. Anybody can go in, create something cool, and show it off. And I think that's what turns Tears of the Kingdom into something far more. That inventive creative tool with the Ultra Hand, with the fuse mechanic. These are two things that are ingenious into making a game really surpass what you've done before. And here are two reasons why with it. The creation tools, that's something that was just a long-standing form with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It was fun to really play around with the physics and everything, but this time you can do it far easier, and there's going to be far more things to play around with. And remember, without that really cool scenery and different puzzles to solve, all these creation tools wouldn't be as fun, which is exactly the reason why this isn't DLC, because you have to design a whole game around these aspects, not just having some downloadable content that's already patched on top of a game that's already designed in a different type of way. Now, the weapon fusion to me is also a major player in all of this. We have the whole people complaining about weapon breaking, and I completely get that, but not at this point. You satisfy so many angles with this, because with the weapon fusion, you turn the whole battlefield into a literal playground where you can fuse anything together. If you see weapons lying about, you can really use that to your advantage, or maybe even enemies can take weapons and fuse it to their advantage on the fly. It creates a more dynamic battlefield, it creates more opportunities, and it creates far more combat scenarios that can be exciting for bosses, for mid-bosses, for encounters, and for so many things in the game, which we did see in that last trailer. So these are all things to where I compare it to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I'm like, man, we were just playing the beginning. This is the true where the game starts at this point, and that is incredibly exciting for all Legend of Zelda fans. But what do you guys think about this when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and what they are adding in? Do you feel like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was simply the pre-game, and now we are here at the end game, we are here at the big boss to fight? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and of course check out my previous videos on The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, where we go over a variety of different things, even how some people are looking kind of silly and backtracking now that Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has shown some more footage. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next video. Peace.